The underworld had many rules. Some were written in blood. Some were whispered in dark alleys. But one rule belonged to only one man. When the dawn worked, the world did not exist. Midnight hung heavy over the city like a warning no one dared to ignore. Inside an abandoned marble warehouse on the edge of the harbor, a meeting was unfolding that could reshape the balance of power across the entire criminal empire. The air smelled of expensive cigars, old money, and quiet violence. At the center of the long wooden table sat Don Alessandro Virelli, a man whose name was spoken carefully even by his enemies. He wasn't loud. He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Power followed him like a shadow. Around him sat captains, smugglers, black market financiers, and representatives from rival families who would normally rather kill each other than share the same room. Tonight was different. Tonight, they were negotiating something bigger than pride. A shipment. A territory shift. A deal that could quietly move millions through the veins of the city without a single gunshot. But in the underworld, silence was often more dangerous than war. Don Virelli leaned back slightly in his chair, fingers resting calmly on the table. His expression revealed nothing. His men studied every tiny movement he made. Across from him, a rival capo nervously wiped sweat from his forehead. "Let's stop dancing around it," the man said carefully. "We both know what's at stake." Don Virelli didn't answer immediately. He simply stared. The silence stretched so long that the man's confidence began to crumble. A vibration broke the tension. It came from the Don's phone. The sound was small. But in that room, it might as well have been a gunshot. No one moved. Don Virelli slowly glanced down at the device lying face down beside his glass of whiskey. The screen lit up faintly against the dark wood. A name flashed across it. Isabella. His wife. One of the younger soldiers at the table shifted slightly in his chair. He noticed it. Everyone in the organization knew one thing. Isabella Virelli never called during business. Not once. Not in 10 years. Don Virelli looked at the phone for exactly 2 seconds. Then he flipped it over. Face down again. Ignored. The meeting continued. "Where were we?" the Don said calmly. The capo across the table exhaled nervously and resumed talking about shipments, ports, and percentages. But something had changed. A quiet discomfort had slipped into the room. 30 seconds passed. The phone vibrated again. Same name. Isabella. A few of the men exchanged quick glances. 2 calls in a row. That was unusual. The Don didn't even look this time. He slowly lifted his glass and took a sip of whiskey. The vibration stopped. The meeting continued. Numbers. Territories. Promises wrapped in threats. A third call. One of the older captains shifted slightly. Now it was strange. Even the rival families noticed. But Don Virelli remained perfectly calm, as if the phone belonged to someone else. The capo across the table hesitated mid-sentence. "You might want to take that," he said carefully. The room went still. The Don's eyes slowly lifted. They locked onto the man who had spoken. Cold, patient. The kind of stare that reminded everyone why this man controlled half the city. "When I sit at this table," Don Virelli said quietly, "there are only 2 things that matter." His finger tapped the table once. "Business." Another tap. "And loyalty." The capo swallowed. The message was clear. The phone vibrated again. 4th call. Ignored. Minutes passed. Deals were discussed. Threats were disguised as negotiations. 5th call. A younger guard near the wall subtly checked the screen reflection in the window. Still Isabella. Still calling. Still unanswered. The Don didn't notice, or perhaps he did. No one could ever tell with him. 6th call. Now the room felt different. Not dangerous. Just uneasy. Like a storm forming somewhere far away. The rival capo forced a nervous laugh. "Your wife seems persistent tonight." Don Virelli didn't react. He simply slid a folder across the table. "Sign it." The man immediately did. 7th call. The phone vibrated longer this time. Then stopped. Silence returned. For a moment, it seemed like the calls were finally over. 8th call. One of the Don's most loyal bodyguards frowned slightly. Something wasn't right. Isabella knew the rules. Everyone did. Ninth call. The vibration echoed again across the table. This time, Don Varelli looked at the phone. Just briefly. The screen glowed softly. Her name. Finn. His expression didn't change. He turned the phone over. Ignored. And continued discussing the deal that would expand his empire. But then, the phone vibrated one final time. 10th call. Longer than the others. Almost desperate. Every man in the room heard it. No one spoke. The vibration finally stopped. The screen went dark. For several seconds, nothing happened. Then a small notification appeared. One new voice message. Don Varelli stared at the phone. For the first time that night, something flickered in his eyes. Not fear. Not yet. Just a small shadow of curiosity. He reached for the device. His thumb hovered over the message. The room held its breath. And then, the warehouse door suddenly slammed open. One of his top captains rushed inside, pale and breathless. Don, we have a problem. The Don slowly lowered the phone. What kind of problem? The captain hesitated. The entire room could feel the weight of what he was about to say. It's spreading across the city, the man whispered. The Don's eyes narrowed. Speak. The captain swallowed hard. Something happened tonight, and the whole underworld is starting to hear about it. The Don glanced down at the unopened voice message from his wife. Still waiting. Still unheard. Then he looked back at his captain. What happened? The man's voice dropped even lower. We don't know yet. A long silence filled the room. But outside that warehouse, somewhere in the city, a truth had already begun moving through the shadows. And Don Alessandro Varelli still had no idea what his wife had tried to tell him in those 10 desperate calls. The warehouse fell silent after the captain's words. No one reached for their drink. No one spoke. Every man in that room understood something important about the underworld. Bad news never arrived alone. Don Alessandro Varelli remained seated at the head of the table, his face carved from stone. The dim lights above cast long shadows across the room, making everyone look like ghosts. Explain, the Don said quietly. The captain stepped forward, still catching his breath. We started hearing chatter 10 minutes ago, small crews first. Street runners. Dock watchers. Then our informants. The Don's eyes narrowed slightly. What kind of chatter? The captain hesitated. That's something big happened tonight. A rival capo scoffed. That's not news. Something big always happens in this city. But the captain shook his head. No. This is different. His voice dropped lower. People aren't saying what happened. A long pause filled the room. They're saying who it involves. The Don leaned forward slowly. And? The captain swallowed. They're saying it involves you. The words hung in the air like smoke. Across the table, several men exchanged uneasy looks. The Don didn't react. He simply looked down at the phone beside his glass. The screen was still glowing faintly. One new voice message. Isabella. His wife. 10 missed calls. And now the entire underworld whispering about something connected to him. Don Varelli tapped the table once with his finger. What exactly are they saying? The captain shook his head again. That's the strange part. They're not saying anything clearly, just rumors. What rumors? That something happened in your territory tonight. One of the Don's captains frowned. That's impossible. Every street is covered. The Don raised a hand slightly. Silence returned. The captain continued. Some people are saying they saw emergency lights near the North District. Another man spoke up. The hospital district? The captain nodded slowly. Yes. The Don's eyes darkened for just a fraction of a second. Most people would have missed it, but the men closest to him noticed. The hospital district. That area wasn't part of any criminal operation. It was personal. Still, Don Varelli's voice remained calm. Police. Not confirmed. Rivals. No movement from the other families. The Don leaned back in his chair again. His mind was moving faster than anyone in the room could see. If something had happened inside his territory, he would already know. His network was too tight, too controlled, too loyal. Buzz. The phone buzzed again. A small notification appeared. Message delivered. The voice message from Isabella had finally finished uploading. The Don's gaze fixed on the screen. For a moment, the room seemed to disappear around him. His wife almost never called. But tonight, 10 times. A slow tension began to creep through his chest. Across the table, the rival capo spoke carefully. Perhaps you should listen to it. The Don's eyes lifted slowly. Are you giving me advice? The capo immediately shook his head. No, Don Virelli. Just an observation. The Don looked back at the phone. His thumb hovered over the message icon. But before he could press play, another man's phone buzzed. Then another. Then another. Several of the soldiers in the room checked their screens at the same time. Their faces changed instantly. Confusion. One of them whispered, "What the hell?" The Don's voice cut through the room. "Speak." The soldier hesitated. "It's coming from the street networks, encrypted chats." "Rumors?" "No, Don." The soldier looked up slowly. "It's spreading fast." The Don's patience thinned slightly. "What is spreading?" The man swallowed. "A story." The Don stared at him. "What story?" The soldier shook his head nervously. "That's the problem. No one knows the full story yet." Another guard spoke quietly from near the door. "But they all say the same thing." The Don turned his head toward him. "What thing?" The guard held up his phone. Everyone is repeating one line. A heavy silence filled the warehouse. The Don waited. The guard's voice dropped to a whisper. "They're saying..." He hesitated. "That tonight, the most powerful man in the city is about to lose something he can't buy back." The words echoed through the room. The Don's jaw tightened slightly. Fear was not something he believed in. Not for himself. But uncertainty? That was different. Slowly, deliberately, he picked up the phone. His thumb hovered over the voice message from Isabella. 10 missed calls. 10 attempts to reach him. Something in his chest told him this message mattered. But just as his finger moved toward the screen, one of the Don's oldest captains rushed toward him from the corner of the room. His face was pale. "Don, we just got another report." The Don looked up, irritated. This had better be important. The captain nodded urgently. "It is." "What is it?" The man hesitated, then spoke the words quietly. "The ambulance sighting near the hospital district." The Don felt the room tighten around him. "Yes." The captain lowered his voice. "It wasn't random." The Don's eyes hardened. "Explain." The captain leaned closer. "The ambulance wasn't responding to the hospital." The pause. Then the words that made several men in the room stop breathing. "It was heading toward your residence." The Don slowly lowered the phone. The voice message from his wife remained unheard. And somewhere in the city, the night was continuing to unravel in ways even the most powerful man in the underworld could not control. The city had begun to whisper. Not loudly, not openly, but in the underworld, whispers traveled faster than bullets. And tonight, those whispers carried a name. Don Alessandro Virelli. Inside the dim warehouse, the tension had thickened into something almost physical. Men who had faced gunfights without blinking now stood quietly, watching their Don with uncertainty in their eyes. The ambulance. Heading toward his residence. The words echoed in Don Virelli's mind like a slow, distant drumbeat. He stood up from the table. Chairs scraped softly against the concrete floor as his captains instinctively rose with him. "Who confirmed it?" the Don asked. His voice was calm. Too calm. The captain who brought the news cleared his throat. "Our street cameras picked it up first. Then 2 drivers near the North Avenue saw it. And it stopped outside your property gate." A cold silence spread across the room. One of the rival capos shifted nervously. "That doesn't necessarily mean." Don Virelli raised a hand. The man immediately stopped talking. The Don's mind was calculating, dissecting every detail. Ambulances didn't randomly stop outside Mafia estates. Not in this city. Not unless something had gone very wrong. His phone rested in his hand now. The glowing notification still waiting patiently. Voice message, Isabella. 10 missed calls. 10 attempts to reach him. Something inside his chest tightened in a way he didn't recognize. Don Virelli had survived assassination attempts, gang wars, federal investigations. But this feeling, this quiet pressure inside his ribs, it was unfamiliar. Across the table, one of his oldest captains spoke carefully. Perhaps we should head back to the house. The Don's eyes shifted toward him. Why? The captain hesitated. Because if an ambulance was there, something must have happened. The Don looked down at the phone again. His thumb moved slowly toward the voice message. But before he could press play, another soldier rushed into the warehouse. Breathing hard. Don. Every head turned. What now? Don Virelli asked. The soldier held up his phone. We're picking up more chatter. The Don's patience was thinning. From who? Street crews. Dock workers. Even some of the smaller families. And what are they saying? The soldier swallowed. They're talking about something happening inside your territory tonight. That much we already know. The man nodded nervously. Yes, Don, but they're also saying something else. The Don waited. They're saying someone close to you was involved. A ripple moved through the room. The Don's expression remained unchanged. But inside his mind, a list of names had already begun forming. His captains. His lieutenants. His family. Names, he said. The soldier shook his head. No names yet. Then it's just noise. The Don slid the phone back onto the table. But the screen continued glowing in the darkness. The voice message still waiting. Unheard. One of the rival capos leaned forward carefully. You're losing control of the narrative. The Don's gaze snapped toward him. The room instantly froze again. The capo quickly continued. Rumors spread fast in our world. If people believe something happened to your family... He stopped talking. The Don stared at him for several seconds. Then slowly looked back at the phone. His family. He had spent 20 years building an empire strong enough to protect them. Walls of money. Walls of power. Walls of fear. No one dared touch what belonged to Don Alessandro Virelli. So why was the city whispering tonight? His thumb hovered over the voice message again. Just press play. One tap. That was all it would take. But before he could, another notification appeared on the screen. Not from Isabella. A new message. A known number. The Don frowned slightly. No one contacted him directly. Not without permission. The message preview appeared beneath the notification. A single sentence. The Don's eyes read it slowly. Then something changed in his expression for the first time that night. A shadow crossed his face. One of his captains noticed immediately. Don. No answer. Don, what does it say? The Don didn't respond. He simply turned the phone toward the table so everyone could see the message. The room leaned forward. The words on the screen were short, but they carried the weight of something terrible. You should have answered her call. Silence crashed into the room. Even the rival capos felt a chill crawl up their spines. The Don's jaw tightened slightly. Trace the number, he said quietly. One of his tech men immediately began working. But deep down, the Don already understood something important. Whoever sent that message knew about the calls. 10 missed calls. 10 attempts. And the voice message still waiting. His phone felt heavier in his hand now. Across the warehouse, another soldier received a call through his earpiece. His face drained of color as he listened. The Don noticed immediately. What is it? The soldier hesitated. Speak. The man swallowed hard. We just received confirmation from one of our watchers near your estate. The Don's eyes darkened. Yes. The soldier's voice dropped to almost a whisper. The ambulance left. The Don leaned forward slightly. And? The soldier looked directly at him. They weren't alone when they left. The room held its breath. Who was with them? The Don asked. The soldier hesitated one last time. Then answered. They were transporting someone from inside your house. The Don's hand slowly tightened around the phone. The voice message from Isabella still waited on the screen. Still unheard. And somewhere out in the city, The truth behind those 10 desperate calls was getting closer to being revealed. The convoy tore through the city like a silent storm. 3 black SUVs sped through empty midnight streets, their headlights cutting long tunnels through the darkness. Inside the lead vehicle sat Don Alessandro Virelli, the most feared man in the underworld. But tonight, something was different. The city outside looked the same, neon lights flickering, rain beginning to fall on cold asphalt, but inside the vehicle, the air felt heavier. Uncertain. For the first time in many years, Don Virelli was chasing answers instead of controlling them. Across from him sat Marco, his oldest captain, watching the Don carefully. No one spoke. The only sound inside the SUV was the steady hum of the engine and the faint vibration of a phone still clutched in the Don's hand. The screen glowed softly. Voice message, Isabella. Still unheard. 10 missed calls. 10 attempts to reach him. And now the entire underworld whispering about something connected to his family. The convoy turned sharply onto a wide avenue. Marco finally broke the silence. Don? We'll reach the estate in 6 minutes. Don Virelli nodded once. His eyes never left the phone. The message icon pulsed faintly. Waiting. Just press play. But before his thumb could move, Marco's phone buzzed. He glanced down quickly. His face changed instantly. What is it? The Don asked. Marco hesitated. Our street watchers are reporting movement. Police. No. Rivals. Marco shook his head slowly. Reporters. The Don's eyes lifted. Reporters. Marco nodded. There are already 2 news vans near your street. That made no sense. News crews didn't arrive in Mafia neighborhoods at midnight unless something public had happened. Something big. Something impossible to hide. The Don leaned forward slightly. Who called them? We don't know yet. Outside the window, the city lights blurred past like streaks of cold fire. Marco checked his phone again. More messages were flooding in now. There's more. Speak. The hospital district just confirmed something. The Don's grip tightened around the phone. What? Marco looked up slowly. An emergency call was made earlier tonight, from inside your residence. The words struck the air like a hammer. The Don stared at him. Who made the call? We're trying to confirm. A moment of silence passed. Then Marco spoke again, more quietly. The ambulance that left your estate. Yes. It went to St. Gabriel Hospital. The Don's expression darkened slightly. St. Gabriel. The hospital his family had always used. The one place in the city where doctors were trusted to keep their mouths shut. The convoy slowed as it approached a red light. Rain had begun falling harder now, tapping softly against the windows. Don Virelli finally looked back down at the phone. His thumb moved toward the voice message. But before he could press play, another call came in. One of his lieutenants. The Don answered immediately. What? The voice on the other end sounded shaken. Don, the rumors are spreading faster now. What rumors? They're saying your family was involved in an incident tonight. The Don's voice hardened. What kind of incident? The man hesitated. We're still trying to confirm. Then don't waste my time. Before the Don could end the call, the lieutenant spoke again. But there's something else. The Don paused. What? The hospital? Yes. They've locked down one of their emergency floors. The Don felt something cold move slowly through his chest. Why? The lieutenant's voice lowered. Because someone from your household was brought in, under critical condition. The line went silent. The Don ended the call. Marco was watching him carefully now. Don. But the Don raised a hand. Not now. The convoy turned onto a quieter street. They were getting closer to the estate. Street lights flickered above the wet pavement. And in the distance, blue lights flashed faintly against the night. Police vehicles. Marco leaned forward to look through the windshield. They're already there. The Don's eyes narrowed. Police at his house. Reporters nearby. Rumors spreading across the underworld. Something terrible had happened. Something he should already know. His phone vibrated again. Another message. Not from Isabella. The same unknown number. The Don opened it. A photo appeared on the screen. Blurry. Taken quickly. But the image was clear enough to understand. An ambulance. Outside his estate gates. Paramedics rushing a stretcher toward the vehicle. And beside the stretcher, a familiar figure. His wife. Isabella. Her face pale. Her eyes filled with fear. The Don stared at the image. For the first time that night, something inside him cracked slightly. Marco noticed. What is it? The Don didn't answer. He simply showed him the screen. Marco's expression darkened. Don, you need to listen to the message. The convoy slowed as they approached the estate gates. Police lights reflected off the iron bars. Several officers stood outside, speaking with reporters who had begun gathering nearby. The Don's world, normally hidden behind layers of secrecy, was suddenly exposed. His thumb moved slowly back to the voice message. 10 missed calls. One final message. The truth he had been avoiding all night. The car rolled to a stop. Outside, the flashing lights painted the rain-soaked street in cold blue shadows. Inside the SUV, the Don finally pressed play. The message began. But before Isabella's voice could finish the first sentence, one of the guards outside suddenly shouted, Don. The Don looked up. What? The guard ran toward the vehicle, panic written across his face. It's the hospital. The Don's eyes narrowed. What about it? The guard swallowed. We just received confirmation about who was inside that ambulance. The Don stared at him through the rain-streaked window. And? The guard's voice dropped to a whisper. It wasn't just your wife, Don. The words hung in the air like a blade waiting to fall. The rain fell harder now. Cold droplets slid down the black iron gates of the Virelli estate, mixing with the flashing blue lights of police cars parked along the street. Reporters stood behind barricades, their cameras aimed toward the mansion that had always been hidden from the world. Tonight, that secrecy was gone. Inside the lead SUV, Don Alessandro Virelli sat frozen. His hands still held the phone. On the screen, the voice message from Isabella was playing. Her voice trembled through the speaker. So shaken. Barely controlled. Alessandro, please pick up, please. The Don stared forward, listening. Outside the window, his guards moved quickly, trying to push reporters farther back. But inside the vehicle, the world had become very small. Just him. And her voice. I tried calling you 10 times, Isabella whispered through the message. The Don's jaw tightened slightly. Rain tapped against the glass like quiet fingers. Then her voice cracked. There's something wrong with Luca. The name hit him harder than any bullet ever had. Luca. His son. The one thing in the world he had tried, unsuccessfully, to keep separate from the darkness of his empire. Isabella continued. He collapsed. I don't know what happened. The doctors said we needed to get him to the hospital right away. The Don's chest tightened slowly. In the front seat, Marco turned slightly, realizing what the message contained. But neither of them spoke. The voice message continued. I called you because he keeps asking for you. Silence filled the car for several seconds. Then Isabella's voice returned, quieter now. He's scared, Alessandro. Outside the estate gates, one of the guards rushed toward the SUV again. But Marco raised a hand, silently telling him to wait. Inside the vehicle, the message continued playing. I know you're busy. I know the meetings are important, but this time, you need to come. Her breathing sounded uneven. Then the words came slowly. The doctors don't understand what's happening, they think it might be serious. The Don's grip on the phone tightened. His empire had survived wars. Betrayals. Bloodshed. But in that moment, none of it mattered. Only the voice on the phone. Only the fear in it. Isabella spoke again. Luca asked me to record this if you didn't answer. A long pause followed. Then a small voice appeared on the recording. But unmistakable. Papa? The Don's heart stopped. Inside the SUV, even the hardened soldiers listening nearby felt the weight of that one word. Papa, are you coming? The child's breathing sounded tired. I wanted to say goodbye before you got too busy again. The Don's eyes closed slowly. Outside the gates, reporters shouted questions at the police. But inside the vehicle, the world had gone silent. The message continued. I know you're important. Mama says you protect everyone. A small cough interrupted the boy's voice. But I just wanted to talk to you once tonight. Another long pause. Then the final words came. I love you, Papa. The recording ended. Silence filled the SUV. No one moved. No one spoke. The most feared man in the underworld sat completely still. Across the city, the rumors were already spreading. Word traveled quickly through criminal networks. Street crews whispered. Dock workers repeated the story. Rival families listened carefully. The Don had ignored 10 calls from his wife. And while he sat in a warehouse protecting his empire, his son had been fighting for his life. Marco finally spoke quietly. The hospital confirmed it. The Don didn't answer. Marco continued. Luca is in critical condition. Outside the car, the guard who had rushed earlier approached the window again. Marco lowered it slightly. What is it? The guard spoke quickly. The reporters already know something happened. Marco frowned. How? They're saying hospital staff leaked information. Marco glanced back at the Don. The story is spreading. The guard nodded grimly. Not just to the media. He hesitated. The other families know too. That was the real danger. In the underworld, power depended on perception. Fear, strength, control. If rival bosses believed Don Verrelli had lost control of his world, even for a moment, everything could change. Wars started over smaller weaknesses. But the Don didn't seem to hear any of it. His mind remained trapped inside the final seconds of the message. Papa, are you coming? Marco spoke again. Don? We should go to the hospital. Still no answer. The guard outside the SUV looked nervous. Sir, the street networks are already talking. Marco asked quietly. Talking about what? The guard swallowed. They're saying the most powerful man in the city couldn't answer one phone call. A long silence followed. Then, slowly, Don Alessandro Verrelli opened his eyes. They were different now. Not weaker, but heavier, as if the weight of his entire empire had suddenly shifted onto something far more fragile. He looked down at the phone one last time. 10 missed calls. One final message. The truth he would carry for the rest of his life. Outside the estate gates, the rain continued falling. Across the city, the underworld kept whispering. And somewhere inside St. Gabriel Hospital, a young boy waited in a room filled with machines, waiting to see if his father would arrive this time, before it was too late.